Welcome to the Motivated Martial Arts Podcast. Your hosts, Jackson White and Gavin Cook, have been friends and taekwondo training partners for over 40 years. This podcast will bring you a mixture of their life stories, martial arts, and business experiences to motivate you in life and throughout your martial arts journey. Adding in a mixture of inspiring interviews and some of the best traditional martial artists around today. So over to your hosts, the Motivated Martial Artists.
Welcome to the Motivated Martial Artists with me, Jackson White.
And me, Gavin Cook.
And this morning, I get to do the intro because Gavin's not feeling good. So, today's guest, we've got Sarah Macrae, formerly Lamley. She's a blue blood martial artist with the blue blood team, but also know her from TAGB taekwondo. So she's fought ITF taekwondo, WTF taekwondo, and now fighting WAKO. So welcome onto the show, Sarah.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for having me on here.
No, it's good. It's been a long time. I haven't seen you for, God, it must be a couple of years now.
Yeah, we bumped into each other, didn't we, back at the World Championships?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Italy, I think it was. No,
it was,
Croatia.
Yeah.
Croatia or Italy, one of the two.
Italy it was, yeah.
Yeah, Italy, cool. So,
Good morning, Sarah.
Morning, Gavin.
Right, well, I'm going to kick off with the first question. So I suppose really for our listeners, just tell everybody really, you know, how you first got into martial arts, a little bit about your upbringing, where you came from, that sort of stuff, starting at the beginning, I suppose.
Yeah, so, I still live in Nottingham, and I grew up in inner city Nottingham, in the infamous area of St Anne's. You hear a lot on the news about it. I think back in the day it was known as Stabbingham. I think we've now got the nickname of Shottingham.
Oh,
so,
really?
I grew up on a sort of a poor estate, really. You know, a lot of knife crime, gun crime, drugs, and that sort of thing. Home life was pretty difficult. Well, I didn't know then, but you know, as I've got older, I've learned that my dad suffered a lot with mental health issues. So home life was really turbulent. It was very up and down, and sometimes there was violence at times. So home, I just never wanted to be at home, really. It wasn't a very nice place to really grow up in. You know, my mum was a cleaner. My dad was in and out of work. He could never hold down a job, you know, always fighting and causing trouble. So, home life is difficult. You know, I was quite a frightened girl, really, quite within myself. You know, didn't feel good about myself and really just wanted some sort of positivity. And then that's probably where taekwondo really sort of changed my life. I had an uncle that trained with Ralph Minotts, and he took me down to a taster session. And I remember going in my brother's hand-me-downs, and we were just doing sort of, you know, your typical taekwondo exercises in line, squat thrust, burpees. And I was running up and down the hall, and Ralph was, you know, saying, "Well done, that's really good, fantastic." And for me, they were just like buzzwords. I'd never heard those sort of positive comments. So I was like, wow, I like this. This is really good. And then that's sort of how it started, really, from being in a really negative environment to being down at Ralph Minotts' class. And again, Ralph himself comes from sort of inner city St Anne's, and he had a lot of children down there that was sort of like me, really. And he knew that a lot of us had, you know, troubled childhoods, and he brought something to my life that, you know, I didn't have before, and it just kept me going, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, really good to hear those sort of stories, you know, on I suppose on the air as well, because as instructors, you know, you don't realize how many people's lives you touch without, you know, you just don't realize it. You don't know what's happening outside of the dojo. You know, you get these kids come in and you just get them to do the exercises or just teach what you do, and you don't always realize what a difference it's making to their lives.
Yeah, I think taekwondo became like my escapism, really. And it became a happy place, and a place that I just wanted to be down at Ralph's club all the time. And, you know, I'd be down there early until sort of 10, half 10 at night. And obviously, as I started to get better and get the rewards, and, you know, my first tournament, I was just hooked. That was it.
Talk us through your first tournament then, Sarah. What was it that gave you that feeling? Did you win?
Yeah, I've actually got, it's one of very few photos I've got from sort of my younger years. And I remember Master Dave Oliver. Back then, TAGB was a lot smaller. And at the end of a competition, they used to do a ceremony and you'd get given your medal. And I remember I was a yellow tag and I won. And I remember going up at the end and Mr. Oliver shook my hand and gave me my medal and everyone clapped and applauded. And I thought, wow, I really like this. I've never had this before. And then again, that was it. I thought, I want to carry on. I want to carry on competing. So that sort of then, led me to sort of on the competition circuit. And again, once I won once, I wanted to win again.
Was it patterns and sparring or just sparring?
No, anyone knows me, and you can ask Ralph. I hated patterns. I'm not going to lie, back then, I mean, I was just there to fight. And at the time, we were quite lucky because it was when Ralph was competing internationally. So not only was he our trainer, we were also his training partners. So Nottingham predominantly then was a real fight club. And what we used to do was sort of just before a grading, the gloves would go down and we'd all just pass our grading and then the gloves would go back on. So, back then Nottingham wasn't really, we didn't do much of the traditional, only when we had to. So, I was always a fighter.
Sounds like your dad's club, Jackie.
Exactly, exactly the same, Fortunately, Gav's never managed to recover his patterns, have you, mate?
Yeah, behave. To be honest, I don't mind doing patterns now. I think it's one of those things that as you get older, you can sometimes get more into it. I was like you when I was younger. All I wanted to do was get my black belt so I could go in the black belt division. That was the only reason for getting your black belt. And I remember getting my first dan in, I don't know, I think it was I should know this date really, 1980, 86, I think, or something like that. 87, I can't remember. It was like late 80s. And I didn't do my second dan for another 20 years after that.
Yeah. That might be me.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Yeah, so, but I think as you get older, like you say, you tend to realise the importance of. I mean, the thing is, it's a good workout as well. You start going through your patterns, all the way through.
It's now we're old.
Older, yeah, you're right, yeah.
Older,
but no,
older.
Yeah, but I will say I have learned to appreciate patterns and I do really enjoy them. But when I was a young, hungry girl, and obviously there was a lot going off at home and I just wanted to go down to training and, it almost depended what was going off at home as well. And I'd go down to taekwondo and if I was in a bad mood or, something had happened, I'd just take it out on the pads or whoever was in front of me. So, yeah.
Yeah, I remember when we used to go train on like a Sunday morning, Jackson. It was predominantly sparring, and sometimes you used to get there, and it's like we're doing patterns, and it's just like your heart just used to sink.
Yes.
Yeah. It was just like, oh, what really? But then you used to hear those.
We've come all this way just to do patterns.
Yeah. Hear those famous words. Move out and put your sparring equipment on. Oh, yes.
Yeah, I think when we were younger, and again there was a lot of children like me, and we used to drive Ralph mad, and it was punishment. If we'd been naughty, he'd say, right, patterns.
We're not doing sparring today, we're just doing patterns.
No, we knew it. We were like, it'd just be line work.
Yeah. So what were some of your favourite techniques then, Sarah? What did you gravitate towards? Were you a back leg kicker, front leg kicker?
No, well, again, do you know what? I think Ralph, because at the time Ralph was fighting sort of, your Dave Shep, Wayne Burnett, those sort of people. And Ralph was very much a hand fighter. And I think he almost taught us all his weaknesses. And he knew what made it, a difficult competitor. So for me, I was very front leg. I was all front leg and I just had this high knee pickup, this right leg side kick that was just my bread and butter really. And everything just came off that side kick.
Yeah. It's so I used to hate fighting awkward fighters that had a really high chamber because my chamber's never been high.
Yes.
So if you had your chamber up, I used to get kicked in the balls every time by me.
But yeah, I was obviously really lucky because Ralph had the WTF background, the ITF background, and the fighters that were coming out of Nottingham back in the day, we were good all-rounders, but I was predominantly front leg fighter, front hand.
So presumably it was Ralph that started dragging you to squad training, was it? When did that sort of?
Oh yeah.
When did you sort of realise that you were a good fighter and that you could sort of take things further?
Yeah, well, in the club again, I mean, it was predominantly boys, and I was in there with all the boys, and they didn't care that I was a girl, and I got treated like them. I think I was about 14 when I started going to national squad training. But obviously, I took to taekwondo really well, and I was there all the time, training, running. So I would have been about 14, but also Ralph used to take me, actually. I used to train with Ralph sort of Monday, Tuesday. Wednesday, he would take me to train with Gary Sykes up at Doncaster All-Stars.
Yeah.
Thursday, I'd be in the Taekwondo club. Friday, he'd take me to Warwick to train with Dave Oliver. And then Saturdays, I'd do national squad training.
So, I mean, you sounds like you were really spoiled, weren't you, really, to be honest? I mean, if you're training with Ralph in the week, and then obviously with Gary and presumably Sarah, was she?
Yeah, Sarah Stevenson was there, back then, yeah.
So you have Ralph, you had Sarah, and then you had Dave, and then you had squad training. Honest, you couldn't have been taught by some of the better people, really.
Yeah, and again, I mean, national squad training back in those days. I mean, obviously Jackson White, Jackson's dad, he was a phenomenal athlete. You had your Roger Lawrence, Michael Parchment, Michael Lambert. You had all the names, Rosalind Simpson, Annette Puddifoot. There was just so much talent at national squad on a Saturday, and I was 14 and I was hungry and I wanted it. So, they were phenomenal days.
What were the areas you didn't like? So we spoke about patterns. You didn't like doing the patterns. Anything in the sparring or the sparring preparation?
No, absolutely loved all of it. Yeah, there's not one element I didn't like.
Yeah, good effort. So talk us through your first competition once you reached your black belt in the were you a lady?
Actually,
division or were you a junior?
No, well, I actually was. I think I might have been the first junior girl to go into the boys division. So when I was about 12 and I was winning all the girls, Ralph decided he'd approach Dave Oliver and say, can she go in with the boys? And Dave said, it's not really done, but okay, she wants to, she can go in the boys. So from about green belt up to sort of red belt, I fought in the boys divisions, which was really, good fun. And back then we used to do all the freestyle competitions, all the WAKO stuff. And I'd go in with, two of the boys from my club. It was brilliant because everyone always wanted to fight the girl. And then I'd whoop their asses and they'd realise, no, actually, I don't want to fight the girl. I think I got to about 15. And at that point, Ralph decided I had nothing to lose. So going to the senior ladies division. So at 15, I was in there and I was fighting a lot of Yanni's girls. The Fowler sisters used to give me hell. They used to actually give me nightmares, the pair of them, because they were so tough and they used to just bully me. And then at 16, as soon as I got my black belt, I made my debut for England. And I fought in Holland on my first one. And my second competition was the Europeans. And my team was Steph Harris, Annette Puddifoot and Rosalind Simpson.
Yeah, effort.
Strong team.
How did you find that step up from going from the juniors into the ladies division?
Not bad at all, because again, I was so lucky that in my club I was fighting people like Stephanie Harris. So I was doing it day in, day out. So for me, there was no step up really. It was just, another thing that I wanted to succeed in.
Yeah.
So when did you sort of start training both styles then, WT as well?
Probably after about 3 years, and it was something that Ralph really encouraged, and he actually said it was okay for me to actually train with his original instructor, which was Dave Evington. So I went back to Ralph's old coach and did the two styles together.
And did you have much success in the WT arena?
Yeah, I did. I did really well in it. However, I didn't like the dieting because they used to make me fight at 46 kilos. So for TAGB, it was awful. So at TAGB, I was fighting back then lightweight with 52 kilos, and they'd make me diet down to 46. So yeah, other than the dieting, it was okay.
Yeah, that's not easy. That's certainly,
but I think again,
two weights below my natural body weight.
But again, back then it was frustrating because also it was when everyone fought back leg and I was a front leg kicker. So I was probably, your equivalent of a Jade Jones back then, with that front leg side kick. And, I was scoring points, but they'd never score it because it was front leg, which is quite ironic now, because obviously WTF has now evolved to a front leg game.
Yeah, but I think a lot of the power kicks are gone now, haven't they?
Yeah, yeah.
It's when you look at the training style from back in the late 80s compared to what it is now, it was always back leg boom switch, back leg boom, wasn't it? No, now it's all front leg. Let's see if we could just get our leg as hard as we can and tap you on the head guard for 3 points. Yeah. But again, the styles evolve with all the systems and the technology that they now use. So I suppose that's what you've got to do. So
well, you adapt your fighting style to the rules that are in front of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
To be successful. In fact, it's the only way to do it.
Yeah.
So talk us through getting into some of the. So you fight now with the WAKO Blue Bloods.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you get into that then?
Well, again, I didn't ever leave taekwondo, but obviously due to careers and whatever, I kind of, focused on that. But I felt that I've never fully achieved what I should have. And sort of, I've still been dabbling in the TAGB and stuff, but I decided to do a comeback to TAGB. I remember ringing up Ralph and he thought it was hilarious that I was actually coming back. So I did the British Championships with TAGB. And I got a gold, but I thought, you know what, I need to get better. I need to change my game. I need to bring something different. And again, as I got older, I know that I can't mix it with the young girls like I used to. So I decided that I was going to come back, but again, I would be a different version of what I used to be. Yeah. So this is where I think then we had the Europeans, and because I was going to fight executive ladies, the Europeans was points fighting. And I thought, well, if I'm going to fight points, I need to be good at points. So I did some Googling, and I'm really lucky again in Nottingham, we've got Team Elite Kickboxing, which are a WAKO affiliated club. And I had a look, and they had a lady there, Anna Jermakova, which was the #1 points fighter. And I contacted her and said, can I come and train with you? I'm part of TAGB, I've got a competition. And they said, yeah, okay, come down. So I went down to them, and really they kind of adopted me. And again, at the time there, we had Gaynor Morgan, which is one of the top points fighters in the WAKO system, and for full contact fighter, Karen Bailey. So again, lots of good women to fight with. And they kind of really took me under their wing, and again, turned me into a good points fighter, really, and taught me the concepts of points fighting, which is then what I then took into my taekwondo, into my TAGB, and did obviously the Europeans and the Worlds.
And how did you get on in those events?
The Europeans, I won gold, and in the Worlds, I got a double gold in points and full contact.
Oh, good effort. Good effort.
How would you describe the two different styles then? So obviously, the point, because you've got point sparring, TAGB point sparring, and you've got point sparring WAKO, which, although it's the same thing, the styles are so different, aren't they?
Yeah, I think when you look at a points fighter, you don't realise what goes into, maybe that kick or, to that back fist. Everything is all about moving, timing and distance. And everything is very sort of, it's like a game of chess, really. You're sort of pulling them in to react. It's a total different game. Whereas obviously with Taekwondo, you sort of load up that front leg and you might chase or whatever until you make contact. So they're very different, but the two combined makes you, it's kind of quite dangerous, to be honest. Which is what I did, sort of took the, parts of the points fighting, what I knew for sort of all those years of doing my ITS style, and then amalgamated it together to create sort of what I am now.
Yeah, well, you get a lot of points fighter specialists, don't you? That's the thing. Certainly in the kickboxing WAKO game, they just drill it over and over and over again, and they will never cross over to. It's like continuous, I think they call it from memory, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, again, that's what I did. I was so lucky to have a really good team around me down there. And that's what we did. I just took, we were drilling me for days on end. Even at one stage, we tried to make me a left leg fighter because we thought that might help me, but it wasn't. The right leg was just, so programmed.
Yeah.
But we had to go through a process as well. I mean, my coach at the time, my right leg, he said it was the most bitchy, spiteful leg he'd ever come across. And he said, that right leg, but this, I want to start getting behind that leg. Why is it the way it is? It was very loaded. You could see it coming. So he kind of, made me actually did a lot of life coaching with me and started to, peel back the layers of my childhood and what had happened at home. And really taught me, got rid of that anger that I had. So when I used to fight with anger. Now when I fight with no anger at all. Because we did so much sort of mind work. And I've learned to fight, in a much more calm, composed, and in a happy state rather than, an upset, frustrated state.
Yeah.
So he did a lot of life coaching, and I think really that has massively helped me be a much better fighter.
I think, and as you get older as well, you can't fight in that angry state. You've got to be a bit smarter, haven't you? You've got to be smarter anyway. You've got to also preserve your body as well, because
absolutely.
When you think about it, it's probably the same for you. If you've had that right leg side kick, drilling it over the years, the hips are going to start. If they've not already, they're going to start going at some point.
Well, I don't know. Well, I think Jackson knows. I've actually had a double hip replacement already.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So just after the World Championships, we knew that for about 18 months, we knew that I needed my hips doing because I had this abnormal range of movement. Obviously, when we were younger, we were always practicing sort of the Van Damme splits in the chairs, and I totally knackered my hips up, but I carried on going. But it got to a stage after the Worlds, and I actually separated with my husband at the time. And again, my coach said to me, whilst your mind's healing, let's get your body healed. So they decided it was a good idea for me to have these two new hips. So I think
did you have both hips done at the same time?
No, within 2 weeks of each other.
Bloody hell.
So as soon as the left leg was full weight bearing, the surgeon said, we're going to do the right hip. So the left hip was 60% worn. The right was about 40. But they decided, I was actually one of 35 people to trial the new hip preservation surgery.
Super hip. It's like a super hip.
Yeah, they're trying to get it in on the NHS at the minute. So they totally rebuilt my hip, and it's been great since. So it definitely does work.
You know what? That's really interesting. Let's just delve a little bit further into this then, Sarah, for some of our listeners that I suppose will be facing or are facing the same problems. So, what was the recovery time on the operation?
From having it done, I had one done in January and then one done mid-Feb. I actually fought in the British Championships November the 28th of having them done. So.
And what sort of rehabilitation did you have to undertake to get?
It was really intense. I was really lucky again because I was part of a study under Loughborough University, and I was working alongside sort of a team of specialists. They had me in that gym every single day, and I had to work hard. But again, I was determined. What actually happened was, I think I went to the Welsh tournament and someone said, "Oh, you won't fight again." And for me, that was like, I will fight again. That is
red rag to a bull.
That's it. That's not me written off. And then that was sort of, where I had to work hard. But I would roughly say it was sort of a 6 months of just doing a lot of strengthening and conditioning before I could even think about kicking. And sort of then, sort of a 3 months prep for the British.
Wow. And in terms of recovery, I know you say you're fully recovered. Are there any limitations that you have with the hips, the artificial hips?
When after the operation, I've now lost 15% range of movement. Mm-hmm. But because I was hypermobile anyway.
What axis is that on? What axis?
Well, I used to kick I was above 180, so I'd probably say I can kick vertical now. But before, I used to be able to kick a lot further. But if anything, it's probably actually helped me, because what they said is through all the repetitive kicking, I'd actually stretched my ball and socket joint, and it was actually sitting a lot lower than where it should have been. And by them doing this surgery, and I had a double hip impingement. They removed a ligament and a tendon that apparently we don't actually need. And then they were able to stabilize the joints. So it's a lot more stable than what it used to be.
Okay. And are you totally pain-free?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, totally. Prior to having my hips done, for the Worlds, I had to have some steroid injections put in. And what should last for 6 months was lasting about 4 days.
Right, okay.
Yeah,
did you find that you still have to do a lot of strength and conditioning around it, though?
Absolutely. Absolute key to preserving your body, I think, is the strength and conditioning and a lot of stretching.
Yeah.
But I think, again, it's made me very conscious of that. And, I have to make a real effort now to do all of those things to preserve those hips.
Yeah.
I think people in general are a lot more aware now, aren't they, about the importance of strength and conditioning. I know we were just on the podcast earlier on that when we were young, we just did taekwondo and that was it. Just kicking over and over and over again, where at least I suppose the new generation of athletes will be bringing in strength and conditioning at an earlier age to preserve those joints. Yeah,
I think we're from the old generation, aren't we? So we're like warriors, we didn't do any of that. It wasn't around when we were younger. But I know with the new athletes, particularly in the club that I go to, they do so much work around strengthening conditioning. And even before you're kicking, they're doing that conditioning work. How can you get your leg up to someone's head if, you haven't got the right, muscles and whatever. So there's a lot of development into that now.
Right, like also squats and deadlifts and bringing all that sort of stuff.
Interestingly, the specialist actually thought that the reason that my hips ended up the way they did was down to doing deadlifts and squats. Okay. And he said that really a lot of our focus should be doing on more singular leg work, because we don't fight squatting. It's not our stance. So they actually think it was me doing all my squats and deadlifts that was sort of the final thing that did my hips.
I think you're okay, Sarah. I think Bill Wallace has had about 7 replacements, I think. So you still...
And he's still going, isn't it?
Yeah, he's still going.
Yeah. Funnily, actually, I remember one of my younger photo shoots. I was down training with Dave Oliver at Warwick, and they asked me to do a photo shoot that Saturday. And Bill Wallace was there, so I met him. And that's the photo shoot. I don't know if you've ever seen it with it's myself and my brother doing the 2 vertical kicks that cross over.
Okay, yeah.
And I was about 16 and I became the TAGB poster girl. So yeah, many moons ago.
If you're around in October, you should come over to York, because we've got Bill Wallace coming over for a seminar.
Have you? Oh, yeah. Wow, that would be amazing.
All going well. All going well, as long as he can fly. I forget the date now. I know it's 10th of October, I think, something like that.
Yeah, amazing man, isn't it? Yeah, incredible man.
Yeah. So what's next then? What's the I suppose what's the future then, Sarah? What's your goals and plans, moving forward?
Yeah, well, obviously, taekwondo, martial arts have changed my life. I think if I hadn't had it, it could have been a different journey for me. And again, going back to the taekwondo and sort of the tenets of taekwondo, I've practiced them in my life outside of taekwondo, which is why I've had a successful career as well, because of that. And I'm really lucky now that I'm in the fortunate position where I can take some time out really to help others. So I do quite a lot of volunteering and mentoring, again, in the place that I grew up. And it's actually in the original club that Ralph started his taekwondo club, which has now become a youth club, and it's part of the Royal Foundation. So I've been involved with them a lot, sort of giving back to them, trying to change their lives, doing mentoring, working with girls, very similar to my sort of upbringing, helping them with work placements. Some of them we've had some athletes that, we've been getting sponsorships for. I know when I first started fighting, it was, financially, it was really difficult for me. And I was actually one of the first people to get awarded the Prince's Trust Fund when I was 16. So again, it's, working with young athletes, getting them sponsorship and funding. So that's sort of where my role is now evolving to, just mentoring and helping.
Brilliant. Well, it's great that you can give back, though, isn't it? Especially, I suppose, been through what you've been through, and you understand exactly what their mindset is at the time.
Yeah. I mean, it's very difficult. I mean, I had a lot of. It was tough for me at school because I wanted to change my life. I used to go home and see what was happening at home, looking at my mum, and I thought, I don't want to be that person. I don't want my children to go through what I did. And, taekwondo became that tool to get me out of that. And then again, through taekwondo, I had great people around me, Ralph telling me how much I needed to do my schoolwork. If that wasn't good, then I wasn't going to national squad training. So again, at school, I did very, very well. I did my A-levels. I then received a full scholarship to Nottingham Trent University, and it was the year of the student games. So I represented the university and I actually won the student games as well. But again, it opened up lots of doors, and having that on my CV. Again, I was a child from an inner city area. People didn't want to employ you. The minute you said you lived in St Anne's and you went to Elliott Durham, people wouldn't give you an opportunity. But again, because of my sport, I was able to access education as well.
Is it still like that now, Sarah? Is that stigma still there?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's where sort of my role comes in because again, I've had that background. I can identify with it. I actually went to live in London actually, and worked there and worked for a big PLC and worked my way up and sort of became one of sort of the top 6 within that industry. But I worked in recruitment, and recruitment, obviously, you are selling people, and I learned some really good skills. And that's why, again, my role, I can help people break down bash those doors down, because I was one of those children, and I can say, well, I was like that. And people didn't want to give me the opportunity, but someone did eventually. I mean, I was really lucky when I moved to London. There was a lady there, she was like Joe Brand, and she took me under her wing. She liked sort of my character, and she knew that I was I had a good work ethic, and she took me under my wing, and she trained me up, but she gave me that opportunity. So yeah, there's still a lot of stigma in sort of St Anne's. It's probably getting worse, to be honest. We've had a lot of knife crime. Yeah. It's I can be that in between person to try and break down some of those barriers.
Brilliant. Thing is, giving back. You just, it's funny. I was just talking to a guest about this morning. You don't realise, do you, what's going on in people's lives, and if you can just change one person's life just by the sort of words and stuff you use and the encouragement that you can give them, you just never really know what's going in their lives, do you?
No, absolutely. No, I don't think anyone knew what was going on in mine. I think it's only as I've got older and I've started to reflect and relate to it that now that I'm in a position where I can help others, and communicate and talk to some of these young people that are facing similar difficulties to what I had, and getting them to focus it on on something positive.
Mm-hmm. That's good. So we're coming near to the end of the podcast for today. So, and very aware as you mature and go through different stages in your life, different things motivate you. So just talk to us when you first started martial arts. I think you've already told us a lot about what's driven you, but what motivated you in your early competition days, and what's motivating you now?
Again, I think when I started competing, taekwondo, it gave me confidence, and it helped me feel good about myself, and it gave me a purpose that I don't feel I had prior to doing martial arts. And again, now I still have a purpose, but of a different kind. So in terms of competition, I absolutely love competing. And as I've got older, at my age, it's not about winning anymore. It's just about being part of something. I just absolutely love it, and it's what keeps me ticking. It's what keeps me young, really, because I know if I want to compete, I've got to be fit, I've got to be healthy. But I guess my next part of the journey is really, I've got to accept that I can't keep doing what I'm doing. As I said, I've started to actually enjoy patterns. So I think that's something for me to start mastering, really, and to put, that discipline and that work ethic. And I think if I really want to, that I probably could do quite well in it. So I think the next part of my journey is to actually go down that road and start to focus on that. I think Ralph will fall off his chair when he hears this. He won't believe me. But I think when I did the World Championships, we did patterns at the last one. And that was the first time I'd ever done a pattern in front of anybody. And, it was a big thing for me. I can get up and go and fight easily. I don't think twice about it. But you asked me to get up and do a pattern in front of everybody. And I was more nervous about doing a pattern than fighting. But yeah, it was really good. And I actually did okay. So
it's really nerve-wracking doing patterns because you're on your own, aren't you? That's the thing. You're on your own.
Well, yeah, it is. And yeah, and for me, I mean, I've always been a high kicker, so having to discipline myself to kick low. Yeah, so I think the sort of next part really is to get involved in that, and probably to start getting involved with some of the coaching side. My other team, Team Blue Blood, have offered me a role there to do sort of mentoring and, get on the coaching team there.
Yeah, and get yourself your own school set up, Sarah.
Oh, do you know what? I would love to, but I've got so much going on. And to be honest, I mean, there's people that have obviously really helped me along the way, which would be sort of your Ralph and Team Elite. And if anything, I'd rather just give back to the people that have helped me.
Yeah, no, good for you. So, I suppose looking back over your career, then, Sarah, what would you self say to a younger you if you could if you could get that 10-year-old girl or whatever and give her some advice in those early days? What would you say to a younger you?
Wow, interesting. I mean, back then I used to carry the world on my shoulders, I guess, and you're so young, so much is going to happen in your life that it's not really worth it. Just to focus on the here and now, forget what happened yesterday, and you can only change tomorrow. You can't change what's already been.
Yeah.
So,
very true.
Yeah. Live in the moment, I guess. I mean, I know,
yeah.
And that's one thing I
very much so.
Keep trying to harp onto my kids because with social media these days, half the kids, they're not living in the moment anymore, are they? They're living, they're watching someone else. Watching what someone else is doing on.
Watching someone else's moment.
Yeah, there's so much pressure, and I think for me, again, if you're watching everybody else, what are you doing with your life?
Yeah.
So if you're busy doing what engaged in your own self, in your own life, then you don't know what's going on with the rest of the world. You just got to focus on you. You can't control, what's going on. You can't. You can't change everyone's life. You can only change your own life.
No, good advice.
Spot on. Sarah, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on this morning. Thank you very much for taking the time out and speaking to us and sharing some of your stories.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah.
We'll find it very, very
No, thank you. And the next time you see me, I might be on that square doing my pattern.
No. Look forward to seeing it.
Yeah, looking forward to getting.
I think I've just put myself under some pressure. So, but no, hopefully.
Don't worry, Sarah.
Yeah,
you've always got Chunji. You've always got Chunji to fall back on.
Definitely. Oh dear. All right. Thank you very much for having me.
All right.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Take care.
Thank you. All right. Goodbye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
I hope you all enjoyed this week's episode of the Motivated Martial Artist podcast. Don't forget to check out our Facebook page and our Facebook group, the Motivated Martial Artist podcast.
And don't forget also the Motivated Martial Artist Instagram page.
So head along for some extra content, interviews and much more.
So until next week, it's bye from Jackson
and Gavin,
the Motivated Martial Artists.